Hello everybody, my name is Sniping is Fun, and I welcome you back to the next Super Smash Bros. Discussion video on my channel. This time, I'm going to be talking about the world of Final Fantasy. And just recently, we got the announcement of Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII is the third fighter on the second Fighter's Pass to join Cloud as the Final Fantasy representation in Smash Bros. My thought process on that is other Final Fantasy representation. And that's why I wanted to talk about this video in general. Talking about other, Final Fantasy games out there and whether or not they deserve to be getting into Smash Brothers, or should it just be Final Fantasy VII? Because here's my thought process on this. Cloud's awesome. Cloud's pretty much one of the most iconic main characters of Final Fantasy, so it was obvious they had to include. And yes, technically the same thing we said for Sephiroth. Sephiroth's one of the most iconic, most popular, not only Final Fantasy villains, but video game villains of all time. Yes, I'm not going to deny that. But when he was announced, one little thought process that went through the back of my mind was this. Like, why double represent Final Fantasy VII? Instead of, representing another Final Fantasy, representing 8 or 9 or 4 or 6 or 10 or the original or other things such as that. Like, I don't mind Sephiroth getting in. He deserves it just as much as Cloud did. And if you have Cloud, you should have Sephiroth. But one thing about my mind is this. Now we have 3 Squaresoft, Square Enix characters. 1 from Dragon Quest, even though technically it's 4 and 1, and 2 from Final Fantasy, but not specifically Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy VII. However, there's 14 other games in the franchise going on in 16th game now, so 15. There's all the spin-offs, there's all these other characters from all these other Final Fantasies. And I think just and since we already have 3 Square characters, the next time we ever get our Square character, I don't think we're going to be getting our Final Fantasy one. I think we're going to be getting something like Kingdom Hearts or Chrono or Tomb Raider or something like that. The next time we ever get a Square Enix character ever in Smash Bros. I don't think it's going to be from Final Fantasy. So it just makes me wonder, is like, Final Fantasy has all this wonderful representation when it was exclusively on Nintendo and all these other games. And this isn't a knock against Final Fantasy VII, despite the fact that I do think it's massively overrated, even though it deserves most of the love it gets. It's one of the best RPGs of all time, not just Final Fantasy franchise, but in general. But it's like showing favoritism to straight up just Final Fantasy VII, as much as it deserves it. There's other games in the series. A lot of people would have said, okay, if you want a villain from Final Fantasy, why not put Kefka from Final Fantasy VI? Or you could have put, like, Jet from Final Fantasy X. Or what's his name? I can't remember his name from Final Fantasy IV. Jesus. So that, unless you want to put in a hero like Tara Branford or Cecil Harvey, or put in Tidus or Yuna or Zidane or Squall, or even Lightning or Noctis or the Hero of Light or Bartz. And it's just not a knock against what Sakurai wants, because Sakurai can do whatever he wants, and whatever Nintendo wants him to do, he will do it too. And it's just like, it's not a knock against what we have, or what we could, and worrying about what we could potentially have, potentially whatever we have in the future. It's just that it's just one of those things where it's like, I know not every person's going to agree with me, but I also know not everyone's going to disagree with me either. There are a lot of gamers out there that would think with Final Fantasy being represented in Smash Brothers, that other Final Fantasy games deserve the love just as much, not just Final Fantasy VII. Like, as a fan of the series myself, like, I think, and one who pretty much enjoys a few other games more than Final Fantasy VII, I feel a lot of these other games are getting shafted just to throw Sephiroth in there because Cloud's already in there. And I know Sephiroth's a fan favorite. I know... Exactly, as much as, and I do not saying, I guess I said it, it's not that I don't think he deserves it. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's all opinion-based, people. It's all like, some people want this, some people want that. But it's like, in my opinion, if you're gonna represent Final Fantasy as a franchise in Smash, it's like Fire Emblem. It's like Pokemon. You want to represent multiple generations of Pokemon, multiple games in the Fire Emblem franchise. So with Final Fantasy, we do the same thing. Now, according to this, we could also base off what during the Sephiroth, you know, the whole video about him, Sakurai talks about how it's hard to get some of those characters to licensing to the music and whatnot, which probably is licensing to some of the characters and stuff in the Final Fantasy games too. So maybe that could be the reason why, since they already have Final Fantasy VII in Smash Bros. They can get a little bit more Final Fantasy VII in with him. But it's like, I just feel it's a little unfair, and like, we should get other Final Fantasy games. But now that we have 3 Square Enix characters, or should I say 2 Square and 1 Enix technically, because it's Dragon Quest Final Fantasy, it's more or less it's like, if we ever do get another Square character, I don't think to be fair, I don't think they should give it to Final Fantasy at all, because at that point it's like, well, at that point, maybe in a future game, Geno might finally get his shot, which is a half Nintendo, half Square Enix collaboration character. But then you have something like Kingdom Hearts, which is also partially Disney, but still a Square Enix franchise. Then you have stuff that they own from the Eidos company, like freaking Hitman and Tomb Raider. Then you still have stuff like the Chrono franchise, and like The World Ends With You, and it's like, it's unfair to them if you just keep giving Final Fantasy representation. So in my opinion, other Final Fantasy representation versus other Square Enix representation, if Square ever gets another character, I feel it would be a little unfair to then, you know, give Final Fantasy more and then leave out other Square franchises. But then if you give other Square franchises more representation, you're leaving out other Final Fantasy games besides Final Fantasy VII. So it's tomato. It's like, it's a give or take, and it's like, it's a little bit, it's all opinion based. It depends on how many Square characters we ever get in Smash Bros. Going forward, or future Smash Bros. Games and whatnot. But still, I do think other Final Fantasy games deserve, as iconic of a franchise as it is, we should have got a character from the Nintendo era of Final Fantasy. And not just, you know, even though Final Fantasy VII is now on Nintendo. But I mean, like, during the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 days when it was only on Nintendo. So, it's all opinion based, and it's all just depends on who you throw into the world of Smash Bros. Who you decide to represent, you know. it all depends on who they have, like who Sakurai wants, who Nintendo wants, if Square is able to get certain characters or certain things represented and whatnot. Depends on it. You know, stuff like that, like representing other Final Fantasy games, which some of them are spirits anyways. And then, especially for music, I'd like to have Dancing Mad in Smash Bros. And I'm not even a big Final Fantasy 6 guy, but I would like to see Dancing Mad in Smash Bros. But, you know, regardless, it's like, you know, it's all opinion based and whatnot, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to deny Sephiroth getting in there. I'm not going to say he was a bad choice. He's a worthwhile, cool choice, and so far, in my opinion, the best. Probably the best character so far from Fighter Pass 2. Well above. Well above, you know, like, you know, Steve and even Min Min. I think the best character in Fighter Pass 2 so far. But he doesn't really match in terms of, in my opinion, as a fan favorite for me, as someone like Terry Bogard and Violet from the first Fighter Pass, or even to some extent, Joker and Hero. So it's like, I think, and it's not like, I probably have more association with him than something like Kefka, but I think Kefka would have been a little bit cooler choice given that, you know, representing a different Final Fantasy, or you can pick any other game you want. Like for me, Final Fantasy 9 was my first game, so it's like I would love to have seen someone like Zidane or someone involved in it, or Vivi for that matter. Like the Black Mage, a Chocobo, a Moogle, something like that. So it's like, it's all opinion based, and it all depends on what Sakurai, Nintendo, and all that want. And certain gamers are going to agree with me, certain gamers are going to not agree with me, certain Smash fans are going to agree with me, certain Smash fans are not going to agree with me, certain Final Fantasy fans will agree with me, certain Final Fantasy fans will not agree with me. But I do think we should get other Final Fantasy representation than just doubling down on Final Fantasy 7, despite Sephiroth, you know, pretty much deserving it. But at the same time, also, other Final Fantasies deserve it too, but then at the same time, representing other Square Enix franchises than just Final Fantasy. So it all depends on what, you know, like there's always going to be deserving characters, right? There's no way you're ever going to get all deserving characters in Smash Bros. Unless you have a roster of like 200, 300 plus, and that's never going to happen. Because they're going to cut certain characters in the next Smash Bros. And then bring in new ones, and rinse and repeat, so on and so forth. I don't know. But that's about it for this video. It's just my 2 cents ranting about other Final Fantasy representation or Square Enix representation, whether they deserve it or not. I love the fact that Sephiroth's now in Smash Bros. But I'm also going to sit back and think about the next Square Enix character that gets Smash Bros. If they ever do get another character, and what are they going to do? Represent some more Final Fantasy? Hopefully things that are not just Final Fantasy 7, or are they going to represent other franchises like The World Ends With You, Kingdom Hearts, Tomb Raider, or Chrono? So with that being said, my name is Titan Peace. Please, for all you want to have a lovely day. Put in the comment section what you guys think about Final Fantasy and other Square Enix representation in Smash Bros. What do you guys think? What else do they deserve? Do they deserve more? Should there be more variety in terms of Final Fantasy representation? That's about it. I'll see you later in the next video. Bye, everyone.